UFC 118 is on tap, so it's time to do our fight picks, get the angle from Boston. Kevin Iole is on the scene. We will get to the title fight. And yes, there is a title fight on this card. It's almost like you forget it with Edgar and Penn, but it's an excellent fight. But I want to get to some of the earlier fights on the televised card because there really are good matchups. Number one, I know they made comments the other day about, let's write the check now and fight of the night. Do you think Nate Diaz and Marcus Davis will turn out to be that kind of fight?
I think it's an interesting fight, and both guys throw hands a lot. So Nathan Diaz is really his specialty is jiu-jitsu, but he's a guy that likes to throw his hands. And Marcus Davis, obviously being a former professional boxer, that's kind of what he does. So I'm not so sure that I'm going to say, hey, this is guaranteed to be fight of the night, but I think it's going to be an interesting, intriguing fight. Marcus, if it gets to the ground, I think Marcus is going to be outclassed in jiu-jitsu. I think, Nathan is at another level. But I think, on their feet, Marcus has an advantage technically, but Nathan has those long arms. And, he's able, just like his brother Nick, to kind of get his hand out there. And it's, like Chinese water torture. It's hitting you in the face all the time. And, may not be the most powerful, hard, thudding shots that anybody's ever been hit with, but there is some zip behind it, and it's just constant. Bang, bang, bang. So I think there's a lot of intrigue into how that fight goes. I like Nathan Diaz to win the fight, Steve. I don't know about you, but I just think that Nathan, has a few more tools, and I think he'll find a way to win it.
I really like Kenny Florian in the Maynard fight, and when it first came out, it was basically an even fight. It's gone up about 40 cents, and now Florian's minus 155. I still like it, and I like Ray Maynard a lot. I think he's a really good fighter, but I don't think he's going to get Kenny Florian down, and I still think Ray's hands, they're getting better. But his game is not as complete as Kenny's.
No, I agree with that totally. I mean, I like Kenny. I think Kenny, Kenny may very well be the third best or second best. He's right in there, lightweight in the world. But, he's in a division where, there are a lot of good guys out there. Gray just doesn't have the overall game. He's certainly going to be the better wrestler than Kenny, but, is he going to be able to get him off his feet given everything else? I think Kenny wins this fight, and I think he may actually finish Gray.
We talked about two fights, and the odds are within betting range. I don't know that this one's within betting range unless you like the dog. James Toney and Randy Couture. Couture is minus 800 here in town. You said something the other day, though. And I know, we agree that it's a really tough fight for James Toney to walk into MMA and, with one weapon and win the fight. But you said something the other day that made it intriguing. We talked about the clinch, and the common thought is, hey, Couture, get him up high, the Greco, get him against the cage. But, that also leaves him kind of in that dirty boxing, that area where Toney in regular boxing really excels, where, he's using his shoulders, he's inside trying to get the uppercut and the hooks.
Yeah, most of the people that I've chanced to win the fight, they think it's if he's standing from a distance and throws a right hand, it lands on Randy, or if he throws an uppercut as Randy shoots and it lands, that's his only chance to win the fight. But I say, if Randy gets him in the clinch, that James is best at when he's really close to a guy, and he's been in boxing where he's been able to avoid getting hit when he's right on top of somebody, and he's able to throw those hooks and those uppercuts, and, that's going to play into his game. If he lands a body shot and then a hook to the chin on Randy, I think that could be trouble for Randy. So, my way of thinking of what's going to happen, Steve, is one of two things. I think the most likely scenario is that Randy's going to try to kick James a lot and go after the legs. It takes a long time to get prepared and have your legs be able to take the kind of power that it take when you get kicked. And James hasn't had to do that. He's doing it in training, but they wear shin pads. And, so I question whether he's going to be able to, accept kicks. And so I think Randy will knock his base out from under him, just kick him a lot and do that. Certainly if he does, there's the risk that James could, kind of step forward and accept the pain of the kick and throw a right hand behind it. But, I think Randy's going to try to kick and take his legs out. Or the other thing is do what Brock Lesnar did against Frank Mir in UFC. What was it? His first fight in the UFC, anyways, UFC 81, I think it was, where within like 3 seconds he shot in and took him down. If Randy gets him off his feet, I think the 8-1 odds in favor of Randy go to 80-1. I mean, I think it just becomes James makes it a more even fight. The longer it goes, they're on their feet. The minute that they go off their feet, the odds exponentially change in favor of Randy.
All right, BJ Penn and Frank Edgar. Obviously, Edgar, uphill climb here, which sounds weird, doesn't it? He's the titleist, and he's actually, if you look back, he's about the same level dog, if not bigger, by some sports books. He's plus 300. Penn is minus 400. Edgar outpointed him. You know, my issue in this fight is Penn can talk about, again, revitalizing, changing his life. BJ has fallen in love with being a striker. It takes more effort to be a takedown artist. We know he can do that. I think that's how he would win the fight and could win it easily because he's the bigger guy, but he has fallen in love with his hands, and if it's going to be strike for strike, Edgar is still the faster guy.
You know, I think I disagree with you a little bit there, Steve. I mean, you know, in this particular fight, I think BJ's got really, really good hands. I think the problem that he had in Abu Dhabi, and I was there, was that he didn't really let his hands go a lot. You know, Edgar gave him a lot of movement, and BJ never was able to cut off the cage and get him in an area and force him into exchanges. You know, BJ's hands are terrific. I really think he's got good hands. I think that's his one clear advantage in the fight. Obviously, his jiu-jitsu is, you know, there's nobody better in MMA, but, you know, BJ has great hands. And I think that, you know, he just needed to step on the accelerator in Abu Dhabi. He didn't do that. And I think Edgar's boxing has gotten better. Edgar had a terrific game plan. You got to give him credit for that. I mean, he had a really good game plan in Abu Dhabi. He executed it to a T. And, you know, he has gotten bigger. I think it's an intriguing fight. No, there's no doubt about it. You can make a lot of cases for either guy in this one.
Yeah, see, I still think because of the cardio, too, that Penn would be better served to do what Gray Maynard did to Edgar, and that, you know, use his power, use his size advantage, try to get him to the ground. To me, chasing around Frank Edgar is a recipe for judges to potentially screw, and he didn't get screwed last time. He gassed. He couldn't keep up with him. I think you're asking for it. And I'll tell you this, at minus 400, do I think Penn's going to win the fight? Yeah, he should be favored in the fight. Absolutely. At his best, he's a great fighter, but if he doesn't use the right formula, that minus 400 is kind of dangerous.
I agree with you. No, that I agree with. The one thing I disagree with is, you know, I don't think that BJ has the kind of wrestling that Gray Maynard had. Gray is a physical, strong wrestler, a strong guy. He was stronger than Frankie that day. Edgar has, you know, put on some weight and improved himself in that regard. So I think if those two would rematch, it would be different. Wrestling is more, you know, it's he has great takedown defense. Now, I think if Frankie, you know, Edgar puts him on the ground, you know, it's a questionable who has the advantage here. BJ's terrific with the submissions, and I think working off his back, he'd be comfortable. But, you know, Frankie, as a lot of wrestlers are, is very good from the top and can, you know, deliver a lot of punishment. You know, so I think BJ looks at it and says, you know, hey, I'm, you know, 50-50 if I'm on the ground, but I got the better hands than this guy. I don't have a problem with BJ, you know, using his hands. I think that's a good move. I just think that, you know, he needs to be a little bit more active than he was.
So you sound confident that Penn's going to win. I think I'm a little less confident, but we're both on the Penn side.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can make a case, as I said, for both guys. I think Penn pulls out the fight because I think Edgar fought about as good a fight as he can fight the last time out. You know, BJ certainly has more room for improvement, and that's why I'm leaning toward BJ in the fight. But, you know, I would never lay 4-1 on this. I mean, I had been seeing, you know, 325, 350, so now it's up to 4-1. You know, that's a big price to pay, you know, against a guy like Frank Edgar that, you know, he's 7-1 in the UFC, 12-1 overall. He's been in Fight of the Night 3 times. You know, look at the guys he's beaten. He's beaten a lot of really good guys. You know, he's consistently improved. I mean, you know, we forget about that. But, you know, Frankie Edgar, fight after fight after fight. You know, he lost that fight to Gray Maynard, and look what he's done since he's come back. You know, I think he's a really talented guy. I like Penn to win, but, you know, I certainly would not want to lay a lot of money down on that.